It is now time to continue on our 2025-26 season previews. Today we have the New York Islanders. The Islanders are a very, very solid team who wasn't very solid a year ago and have now taken a complete 180 this offseason, but there's probably still a lot of pain to come. The season previews continue on today with the New York Islanders. We have been previewing every single team so far this season. We have now done Anaheim up to New Jersey. So if you want to check out all of those, be sure to do so in the playlist in the card up here. But that being said, then, let's take a look at the New York Islanders, who have been a very middling team the last couple of years. And you look at their prospect pool, even a year ago, a calendar year ago, it really was not that great. And they've taken a complete 180. But first of all, let's go take a look at 2022-23, 3 seasons ago, because I do think the progression, or I guess the digression to the progression is important. In 22-23, they went 42, 31, and 9 for 93 points. They were 15th in the NHL that year. They did make the playoffs. They lost in round 1 to the Carolina Hurricanes. Stop me if you heard that before. We'll get back to that in just a moment. But regardless, it was a year where they were good. They got the Bo Horvat trade done, and then they were actually outside of a playoff spot when they made that move, but that move kind of boosted them into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So obviously now, there's that, but they didn't really go that far. In 2023-24, the team would struggle a lot. They would fire Lane Lambert, they bring in Patrick Waugh, and then obviously they made the playoffs off of that boost. But they went 39, 27, and 16 for 94 points. They were 15th in the NHL, and obviously they did make the playoffs that year. They did not win in the playoffs that year, as many other years prior. They did play Carolina again. They lost in 5 games. There you go. Pretty much more or less it was a repeat of last year, just a lot more overtime losses, to be honest with you. And then this past year, they just kind of, I don't know, they just kind of fell off a cliff, more or less. They weren't, really, really bad, but they still weren't that great. They won 35, 35, and 12 for 82 points. They were 23rd in the NHL. They missed the playoffs. It was just a year where, I didn't think they were able to get a consistent season out of it. I felt like they did kind of have a little bit of a late season push. They always do that, but obviously this year just wasn't enough in the tank, and it was worth it too. It was definitely worth it to not make a late season comeback, because they got first overall. They drafted Matthew Schaefer. They brought in so many new other prospects and new other players. Things are now looking great for the New York Islanders for sure. So that's something you want to follow there. But overall, it was a digression to a progression for the New York Islanders. Looking at your management here for New York heading into 2025-26, you start off with Matthew Darche, who was recently hired as the new general manager just this past offseason. He has made some pretty solid moves, trading away Noah Dobson for Heineman and 2 first-round picks, became Eklund and Aitchison as well. So he's made some solid moves. Lamoriello was the one who made the Cal Ritchie trade and such, but regardless, Darche has been here. He is the brand new GM. He is inheriting this roster, and now things are really going to start to change. And I have confidence in him because he was the GM with Tampa back in the 2020s when they were winning their Stanley Cups. And then Patrick Waugh has been the head coach since midway through 23-24. Obviously, he was a part of the Lou Lamoriello, but I feel like Darche is going to obviously give him a chance in the brand new management corp. So we'll see what happens there. But Patrick Waugh has, I don't really think he's been necessarily the problem and the reason why the New York Islanders haven't been able to put anything together. But above all, I think that they've done a very good job at, turning this team around in a way. And I'm actually decently confident in these two and putting together a pretty good roster. Your key arrivals. I mean, you could look at this draft class as your key arrival players. These guys who they acquired that are going to be now impacts aren't going to be that massive of players in the future. But regardless, there's still players we need to talk about, obviously, so let's go down the list. Jonathan Drouin, Maxim Shabanov, Emil Heineman, Ethan Bear, and David Rittich are the guys who are newly acquired here to the New York Islanders. So, first and foremost, a guy like Jonathan Drouin will fit in solid there on the top 6. I feel like that's a player who, I feel like for a guy like him, he certainly has the capabilities to maybe score and be a decent top 6 performer on this team, so we'll see what happens there. Shabanov is one of those fun ones. He's one of those interesting guys on this roster who, down the road, like, he could be a good acquisition, but also he could not be. Like, these KHL guys are so very, very difficult to determine, and I feel like, in my opinion, like, some of them work out, some of them don't work out. It's kind of night and day with those KHL players. So Shabanov, especially like the ones like, I mean, guys who are like free agents. Like the ones who are drafted, obviously, like you know them, but guys who were like free agents, they don't always work out. And then Emil Heineman, you obviously have there as well, will be a decent third or fourth liner. Ethan Bear is a deft defenseman, more or less. And then David Riddick will probably be either your backup or your third string goaltender, depending on the health of Semyon Varlamov. So just want to factor that in there for sure. But those are your key arrivals for the New York Islanders. Looking at your key departures then for the Islanders, there are 3 names on here. One of them is the only one that is genuinely a big deal. Noah Dobson, Scott Perunovich, and Hudson Fasching are the guys who are no longer on the Islanders. So Dobson was a key part to this blue line. He was great top 4. He had some phenomenal years with New York. He was drafted by the New York Islanders. But it feels like he just wasn't, I mean, I think he could have fit the timeline, but it just felt like the Islanders weren't interested in keeping him around anymore, and they thought that it would be better off trading a young defenseman like him instead of keeping a young defenseman like him. But regardless, again, I feel like Dobson will be a good acquisition in Montreal, but I think the Islanders are pretty happy with Eklund and Aitchison, and then Heineman there as well. So I'll take that. Perunovich was more or less, like, he was a later acquisition. He just, like, he was okay. And then Fasching, it was a solid 4th liner / 5th liner, is no longer in the NHL either, I don't think. So overall, I think the key arrivals and key departures, they kind of cancel each other out. Not really anything of, like, insane importance besides the Noah Dobson trade. The other guys, like, they're just kind of players who are here while this team kind of goes through its little bit of a retool that they're doing. So looking at your depth chart here for the New York Islanders, let's start off on that left wing side. You have Anders Lee, Jonathan Drouin, Pierre Engvall, and Anthony Duclair rounding out your first 4. Then you have Maxim Tisblikov as your extra forward there as well. So Anders Lee has been a long-time player for the New York Islanders, long-time captain as well. Nothing really bad to say about him. He's been a good New York Islander and a respectable one at that. He's been one of my favorites for a very long time. Jonathan Drouin, again, as I said, will be a decent middle sixer. I think, like, as long as he can, you know, acquire some good scoring and, you know, provide some extra offense, I guess there's really nothing wrong with it. Engvall has been brutal. He has not been very fun with the Islanders. Just overall, that contract, that deal has not been very pretty, so not really a big fan of that. Duclair will be decent. Again, Duclair is Duclair. I don't know why he's on the 4th line. The Islanders just hate him. Patrick Waugh and him definitely had a little bit of like a bumping head portion here a little bit last season, but I think maybe that can turn itself around. We will obviously see. And then Tisblikov as well will be a solid player on that side too. Again, I thought he was a really good rookie last year. He's got that little bit of like a physical side to him, so he's fun in that sense there as well. And then you look at your center core. You have Bo Horvat, Matthew Barzal, J.G. Pageau, Casey Zizekas rounding out your first 4. Then you have Kyle McLean as your extra 5th line center at that. So Horvat is one of the, I would still even say, more underrated centers in the league. He still does provide a decent amount for the Islanders, having a good 70-point season or 60-point season. So, consistent first-line center. Barzal, I have real concerns with. Just can't stay healthy. Last year was a big problem with that. He really struggled at staying healthy. And you could tell that the Islanders' offense overall really took a dramatic nosedive because of it. And it already wasn't really that good to begin with, but Barzal was one of those guys who was kind of keeping it afloat more or less. Pageau, not a bad 3C. Zizekas, again, not a bad 4C. So those are 2 guys who are decent 4th liners there for sure. And then McLean actually did play consistent minutes for a little bit. He was a playoff player as well. Not too bad. On your right wing side, you have Kyle Palmieri, Simon Holmstrom, Maxim Shabanov. You have Emil Heineman rounding out your first 4. Then you have Mark Gatcomb as your extra forward there for New York. So Palmieri is a longtime Islander. I was still confused at the fact that they traded him. So I definitely, or they didn't trade him. Not that they did trade him. But overall, I think that it's not a horrible move keeping him back. Holmstrom will be a decent second-line player. He was good on the power play last year at points. Just overall, not a bad player whatsoever. Shabanov will be interesting. Again, he has that KHL experience. He can play very well. Again, I do have my concern with some KHLers and just the way that how they can be. Some of them don't pan out when they come over, but I'm not saying Shabanov won't, but some of them don't, so we'll have to see. And then Heineman will be a decent fourth liner. He was with Montreal. And then Gatcomb is just more or less just a depth forward there. Nothing more. So overall, this is a meh forward core. It's pretty much the same from what it was last year. I would say it's slightly better with the guys like Heineman and Shabanov in there, but overall, it's pretty average, more or less. Looking at the defensive corp now for the Islanders, it's about the same as well. Probably a little bit worse without Dobson. You start off on your left shot side. You have Alexander Romanov, Adam Pelech, Matthew Schaefer rounding out your first three, and then you have Isaiah George as your extra defenseman there on that left shot side. So Romanov is your number one guy there, obviously. That was one of the moves that I disagreed with, signing Romanov to that big contract. I was just like, I don't know if I would do that myself, but okay, go with it. I mean, just one of the moves that I didn't agree with. I don't think Romanov is that worthy of being paid that much money, but regardless, you can let me know your thoughts down below. Pelech and Pulock, collectively, I know Pulock's the right shot guy, haven't been what they once were. I really wish they were, because they used to be such a dynamic defensive pairing, but they will be together once again this year, more likely than not. And then Schaefer. I have some opinions on Matthew Schaefer. I don't believe that it's the right move to bring him right over to the NHL from the OHL. I just don't think that's the right move. With the amount of games that Schaefer played last year, dealing with the injury, and then, having only played 17 games in the season last year. I'm not saying that he's he's not a good player, but I just don't know if it's the right move to immediately throw him right into NHL competition. Now, that being said, they can just give him a little bit of an 8-game stint, and then if it doesn't work out, they send him back to Erie. So that's probably what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. I don't really see him, and I'm not saying by any means that he's a bad player, but I just don't know if I can see him coming right in there right away and just being phenomenal. He's not a Cale Makar-esque player or anything like that. And I'm not saying that Schaefer's this bad player. I'm prefacing that. I love Schaefer. His story is remarkable, but I don't know if it's the right move to just put him in here right away. And again, I know that training camp still needs to happen in preseason and such, and who knows? Maybe I'm proved wrong. Hopefully I am proved wrong, but I just don't know if it's the right move in my opinion. And then George. I like George a lot. I think that he's somebody who it does kind of suck that the Islanders, the left shot side is a little bit deeper, and that's kind of why, I don't hope that Schaefer goes to the OHL, but at least George would get some playing time. And then on your right shot side, you have Tony DeAngelo, Ryan Pulock, Scott Mayfield, Adam Boqvist, and Ethan Bear are your 5 guys on the right shot side. So DeAngelo's your first pairing defenseman on the right shot side. We're going to move on from that. Pulock is your second pairing guy. Again, him and Pelech, not what they once were, but still they'll be together this year, probably nonetheless. And then Mayfield. Mayfield has definitely had his struggles, so we'll see how this year goes with him. And then Boqvist wasn't a bad pickup last year. He will be a decent, 700K type of player. And then Ethan Bear, kind of the same thing. He'll be down in the AHL with Bridgeport, most likely than not. But overall, the blue line is not the greatest in the world. I do feel like it lacks defense, but obviously I guess we're going to have to find out, and we'll see what happens. And then you take a look at the goaltending for the Islanders. You start off with Ilya Sorokin, Semyon Varlamov, David Rittich are your 3 guys. Then you have Marcus Hogberg as your 4th-string goaltender. So a little bit deeper of a goaltending pool there. So Sorokin is Sorokin. He is a top 10 goaltender in the league. I believe I had him number 6 in my rookie rankings, but overall this is a guy who is phenomenal for the New York Islanders, and you could argue a big part of why they've made the playoffs in recent years is because of him. So I just want to preface that and put that out there to the world. Varlamov, I don't know. I just don't know, with the injury and stuff. from what I researched, it looks like he's gonna be fine, but he's dealt with it. He's dealt with multiple injuries plenty of times over the last couple of seasons. So I wonder if they brought in Riddick there as like insurance. I don't believe Riddick would be the third string, so he's probably not going to play a ton. And then Hogberg, more or less just a fourth string guy. He did play games last year though for the Islanders. That showed you how just like injured they were, because Sorokin went down and Varlamov was already out, and then Hogberg went out. It was just like, man, I think they had Jacob Skarek up playing NHL games. It was wild. And I think that Tikkanen guy from down below who played ECHL like a year ago was playing an NHL game. Yeah, just some wild stuff. But overall, the goaltending is very solid with Sorokin in front. After that, it's a little bit subject. Looking at your biggest questions for the Islanders, the first one and the only one for me is, will the offense take a change? That being, will the offense improve? Because so much of what we talk about from the New York Islanders over the last, I would say, 5 years since I started making YouTube videos, 6 years ago at this point, is just that they tend to have horrible offense. They just tend to not be able to score. And I feel like there was a mix of that being even worse last year with Barzal not being there. Brock Nelson was traded away as well. So definitely, some things have changed with the overall offense of this core. I don't think it improves. I think it will actually get a little bit worse just because of the fact that you have guys on here who can score, but most of this team is older veteran players. I just don't know if the offense is going to really improve. If Barzal's healthy, maybe it gets better by a little bit, but overall I'm not expecting a massive improvement from almost anything on this New York Islanders roster. So now on then to my final question. Playoffs, standings, cup. Those are the things that we are asking ourselves here about the New York Islanders. So playoffs, no. Cup, definitely not. I don't think playoffs happen. It's not impossible, though. I will say that. I'm not going to rule it out, because this is more or less the same New York Islanders team that made the playoffs in 23-24. If they are able to have a really hot end or beginning or whatever of the season, they can make it. Like, Sorokin is good enough to put this team on his back to get them to the playoffs. So it's not completely out of the question, but I'm not ruling for it, in my opinion. I don't think that it will happen. So I do want to say that. But as well as that, too, I do think that just overall, this roster is mostly the same. So they probably will finish about the same. I think I have them a little bit worse than I had them this year. But overall, I think that just it's going to be another year of kind of mediocrity for the Islanders. But that's okay. You want to get that high draft pick, and then maybe at the end of next year you could trade a guy like, I don't know, Kyle Palmieri or Anders Lee or J.G. Pageau has been in rumors for a while. You could trade some more, get some more assets, draft some more players. Things could be looking good for the Islanders down the road, and things already are. You look at their prospect pool, you have Schaefer is the number one guy, you have Cole Yzerman, Callum Ritchie, Eklund, Aitchison. It's looking like a pretty solid prospect pool right now. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like the video down below and subscribe if you are new. But regardless, that is it for me. We got the Rangers tomorrow. That'll be a fun one. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.